What is the surgery like when it comes to a distal bicep tendon tear? I'm just going to say it, really interesting.
Oh, hi, Mark.
What's up, Freccero fam? Welcome back to my channel. We'll have to experience everything that life has to offer. I've been doing all these videos of me documenting my whole recovery and everything from a distal bicep tendon tear. You can see this is where I'm at right now at the time of this video. Full on hinged elbow brace. I got my wrapping off, and you can see this is kind of where the mark was from the surgery. In this video, because I have gotten a lot of comments and questions and DMs actually about the surgery. I've had people be like, hey Mark, I'm also getting surgery soon, or I also tore my bicep. What is it like? There's a lot that I wish I knew, so let's get right into this. So first off, I'm going to stress I was working out to kind of give a brief recap in case you haven't seen my other videos about what happened. I was working out normally, nothing too crazy. I was doing a curl, technically a preacher curl to be more specific. My arm was kind of isolated, went to curl up, the entire bicep right here snapped off. And what happened is it snapped upwards. My arm almost looked like a deflated balloon. And it was crazy because during my workout, this is the end of it. So my arm had a pump, meaning that typically when you work out, your arm's more pumped up, it looks bigger. So one of my arms, this one, was all pumped up and inflamed, and this one looked like a shriveled up shrimp or something. And I knew something bad happened. I heard a super loud sound like a firecracker, so loud that the guy next to me, wearing headphones, took them off and went like that. And my arm looked super bizarre. When I went to the ER and had them inspect it, they said I did what's called a full tear. That basically means that the tendon itself, the bicep tendon, snapped off the bone. There's going to be two types of tears, and I might as well say this. I'm not a doctor, and I never pretend to be one in any of my videos. Do not take this as intense, hardcore medical advice, right? Always consult with a licensed professional, might as well say that. But there's two types of tears. A full-on tear, where it completely snaps off, and a partial tear. And this is one big thing I'm going to kind of say in the beginning of this video that makes you do your research and have an expert look at it, because if it's a partial tear, depending on how partially it tore, it might be able to heal on its own. And when it comes to the distal tendon is typically used to turn stuff like this, right? So you have two different things. So with this arm, let's say I never got surgery. I could probably still curl, no issue. But when it came to, like, say if I had to turn a doorknob or open up a really intense jar, turning is kind of difficult, right? And I will say I'm right-handed. So they did say to me when I went to the ER, like, hey, you don't need surgery if you really don't want it. It's kind of tricky because you're young, but at the same time, how often do you use your non-dominant hand to turn stuff or to do strength type exercises with turning, right? So it became that kind of question. Do I want surgery or not? And I 100% opted for surgery. And talking about the partial versus full tear, they did say to me, like, hey, because you fully tore it, which is what happened to me, full tear, you should get surgery. I have heard of some people, and this is why I suggest maybe try to argue with them, whatever. I have heard of some people who got a partial tear, and they said, well, because you didn't fully tear it, we're not going to opt for surgery. We're just going to let you heal on its own, rest, do some PT, etc., etc. We're going to let you heal and let it heal on its own. When I talk to the doctors, they said, look, I'm going to be honest. When it comes to your arm, when it comes to the distal tendon, that kind of part, the distal bicep tendon, you're going to have maybe 10% strength in that for the rest of your life. So for me, if let's say I was 70 or 80, they're like, you could probably go without surgery. So you don't need surgery. I want to stress that. Again, I want to stress this is not meant to be medical advice. Everybody's situation is a bit different. But they said, look, you don't technically need surgery. You could still go on for the rest of your life and be fine. But two things are going to be the issue. One is that, of course, your strength. You might get 10% strength, maybe, if you just don't do anything. And two, aesthetically, it's going to look a bit different. It's going to look a bit different, like, visually. I mean, I even remember going to the ER or looking at myself in the mirror, seeing this arm pumped up, and you could see, like, right here how you have this kind of, like, bump. And here there's just no bump, no bicep. It was almost like half my bicep was just gone. It was just gone. It was super bizarre. So I did opt for surgery. So that's a big thing I will say, that if you are in my position and you're young and, you want to get your full strength back and everything, I suggest getting surgery. But again, have to stress for a third time, I'm not a doctor, so I do have to stress that point. So I opted for surgery. They had surgery happen about a couple weeks, maybe a week and a half after this happened. I tried to convince them to get me in as soon as possible because, as you can imagine, during the time between the injury and surgery, couldn't really do too much with this arm. If anything, though, I might as well say, as a funny side note, I'm actually more limited now with what I can do than before I got surgery. I think it's because now I'm in full recovery mode, so I'm really trying to, do as little as I can to let it rest. And I'll talk about the recovery process, after the surgery aspect on this video. Got surgery, and the way it worked, kind of typical. I already did a video about getting anesthesia and going under, but typically, the night before midnight, you stop eating or drinking, water or anything. You wake up the next morning, they give you like a carbohydrate type beverage or like a powder that you mix with water, you chug it. Got to the hospital, and met with my anesthesiologist. I will say I have the playlist list below in the description of all my videos about the recovery. So I did go into full detail in that video about going under because I suggest watching that. But basically, got put on anesthesia, woke up, arm was in a splint. So it was in a splint in the beginning, and I was more like this. In terms of surgery, I got to be honest, pretty straightforward in the sense that they put me under, I woke up and the whole thing was done. Now, what they did, to be a bit graphic or a bit descriptive, is they grabbed my bicep, brought it back down to the original position, drilled a hole here, and then reattached it. The best way to think of it is pretend like you're trying to extend a rubber band and then nail it into like a block of wood. Essentially, that's what they did. So grab the bicep down, drill it in here, and boom, now it's attached. Now, there is a chance that it could snap again, especially right now as I'm still healing, because when it comes to a tendon tear, which I came to learn, not that breaking a bone is bad. We hear, oh man, you broke a bone, that's crazy. But when it comes to breaking a bone, it's a pretty simple recovery in the sense that you harden the bone, like think of it like almost cementing something, and you fix the bone, you just let it heal, boom, that's it. I know a bit of an oversimplification. But with a tendon needs to be rigid enough and strong enough to be able to lift stuff, right? To do like say a curl, for example, when it comes to the bicep tendon, but also it needs to be loose enough or elastic enough to be able to move freely, right? You don't want it to be super hard where I can't even curl because that's bad, but I also want to be, too loose where I'm just like, and the whole thing snaps off, right? So that's why the recovery for a tendon is so lengthy. So in terms of surgery, that's what they did. And as this is how it looks now. Initially after the surgery, I got a splint, so it was like this. Super itchy, think of it almost like a cast, basically. It's kind of like a half cast, if it were like that, where it's like some wrapping with a splint in it to keep my arm in the right position. Then, at about 2.5 weeks after the surgery, I then got the hinged elbow brace, which I'm at right now at the time of this video. They took the wrapping off, and what happens is, because you need that tendon to heal after surgery, you're going to be like this. Typically, after they take the splint off, like this. So basically, I start off at 45 degrees. Then what happens is every week, they increase it by 15 degrees. So right now, at the time of this video, I'm at 45. Last week I was at 60, so I'm at 45 now. Then I'm gonna go to 30, then 15, and then 0 when my arm will be fully straightened out. So you can see if I go like this, how it's not fully straight, of course not yet, if I compare my arms. And in terms of the PT, in terms of the recovery, post-surgery, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of it is more what you can't do compared to what you can. So 95, maybe 99% of the day, my arm's like this. So this right here locked in position. So you can see my arm's pretty much right now permanently locked in a semi-straight position. Not fully, but semi-straight. Then every 2 hours, I might as well show you on camera because I haven't done this actually in a couple hours, I unlock it and I do an assisted arm curl. I'll do a video in depth, by the way, about PT and what I'm doing, but I basically just do this. Very slow. And what it does, as you can imagine, just gives it some movement because I don't want my arm to be locked all day, every day, and have it get, no movement, which is not good. So I do this. What I was told is 10 to 12 reps every 2 hours. So I do this. And I also use the other arm to assist it because I don't want this arm fully doing everything, at least not yet. And then, I don't know how many, I kind of lost count as I've been talking. But I do this. Then I turn it over, go back to 45 degrees, lock. It's now locked in place. And that's it. Now, in terms of the recovery, post-surgery, because keep in mind, as far as I understand it, and again, I want to stress, I am not a doctor, so please don't take this as any kind of advice. Before surgery, I'm going to say 5 days or 6 days before surgery, I could use this arm, even though my distal tendon was completely tore, to still curl stuff. And the vibe that I got is that if you don't get surgery, you might recover faster in general, but never to full recovery. Like I said, when it comes to your distal tendon, 10% strength. So if anything, the recovery might be quicker if you're trying to get back to doing curling or working out without getting surgery. That's at least the vibe I got. Again, please, I want to make sure it's not medical advice, and I keep saying that, when it comes to surgery, the vibe I got is that once you get surgery, because, it's pretty intensive on your arm, it's going to take a bit longer. So it's going to take me longer to get back into working out, longer to get back into where I was. But at the end of all of it, I'm going to be way better off. So the recovery, they do say about 6 to 8 months from that. So I got surgery, to be specific, on August 22nd. So I'm probably looking at about April 22nd, let's just say May 1st to be safe, until I can start doing like all the typical parkour stuff I do, like handstand push-ups, whatnot. But I will say, kind of a cool positive note, it is funny, I mentioned this in the past video, that I've had a lot of people come out of the woodwork, if I'd word it like that, or people I've never met, hit me up, be like, hey man, I'm so happy you're doing this video series, because if you think about it, it is true that everyone talks about breaking a bone. I never really heard about a tendon tear, maybe once or twice. I never really knew what went into it. And a lot of people said, hey man, these videos are kind of inspiring me. I also tore my bicep tendon. I don't know what the process is like, so I appreciate these videos. And what's kind of cool is I was out this past Sunday. I was going for a huge walk. My first big workout. I did about a 7.8 mile walk. So let's just round it to 8 miles. Walked about 8 miles, which felt great. But into a guy, and he goes, hey man, what happened? I'm like, tore my bicep. And he goes, oh, same. And he showed me, and his arm, it looked a bit odd. So I was with that. Who knows how this is going to look at the end of all this? Maybe it'll still look a bit visually different. I don't know. But he said to me, he's like, yeah, man, I'm not going to lie. I did the same exact thing. Tore my distal tendon, was super worried if I'm going to get back into doing fitness and he doesn't do acrobatics, sorry, but fitness and working out and lifting weights and everything. And he's like, I'm not going to lie. By month 4 or 5, I could already do a push-up again. I was getting back into it. I made a full recovery as if nothing ever happened. So for you, don't give up. I know right now it seems a bit bleak because you can't really do anything with it, but don't worry, you'll make a full recovery. So it's kind of a cool, positive thing to hear about this, because when I asked the doctor afterwards, I said, okay, let's say 8 months later, I'm back to working out again. Am I going to be the same as before or not? What I was told by the doctor and PT is that typically at the end of all of this, I will never be fully the same compared to when I first started. And the way they worded it, the doctor or the surgeon worded it, is that I'm going to have, say, 99% strength in my arm again, not 100%, as if this, say, never happened. So in some sense of it, will I ever make a complete full recovery? Say I was an Olympic athlete where every little bit matters and everything. Would I ever get back to exactly where I was? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. But it almost seems like the full recovery after surgery, the strength thing, is going to be so minuscule that I might not even notice it. I mean, for me, I'll be honest, when it comes to my biceps, I very rarely curl weights. I'll be honest, I think for me now too, I have some PTSD. I don't think I'm ever going to curl a weight again. Or definitely never preach a curl. Maybe I'll curl a weight again. The big thing the guy told me that I told you I met this past Sunday is that it's the twisting. Like I said, when it comes to your distal tendon. So he said, just if you're going to do any kind of curling, don't do one of these. Don't do anything. Just make sure just up, down, no curling, no twisting, none of that. So we'll see. But the big thing for me when it comes to biceps, which is an interesting one, is doing straight arm planche holds or planche push-ups. So I've done a bunch of videos about this on this channel because I do a lot of calisthenics. A planche push-up is you do a push-up and your arms are kind of extended out. So your shoulders are over your elbows, but your legs are not touching the ground. So picture a push-up, no legs touching the ground. It's very intensive on your body. It's very intense not only on your muscles in terms of the way you think of a muscle, but also your micro tendons, your joints, everything. So it takes a while and it takes a lot of gymnasts years to do some of those exercises. And this is why if you look at a lot of gymnasts, they have crazy big biceps. One, because they do a lot of rings, a lot of chin-ups with rings. But two, they do a lot of straight arm stuff. And straight arm actually does work your bicep. So that's one thing I'm a bit worried about. Will I be able to do planche push-ups again? Planche holds again, which took me years to get to? Tough to say. But at the end of the day, one thing I will say is that when I looked at everything, talking to all the doctors, the experts, doing research, people do research for me. I even asked ChatGPT, which I take with a grain of salt. I basically asked everybody. Anybody, and looked at everything I could about what's the best option. I'm really happy to go with surgery. That yes, I think the recovery process is probably going to take longer. But if you think about it, in the grand scheme of life, 6 to 8 months, not that much, especially to make a pretty much full recovery.